Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Okay, so today we are looking at Jellicent for Open Ultra League. I don't know why it says not available in Pokemon Go, because it's literally released like 2 weeks ago, but I'm just guessing Go Hub just hasn't updated yet. So, Jellicent, as much of you know, has been causing quite a ruckus in Great League. Do you know what? You could actually use it for Ultra League as an XL level 50 Pokemon. Yes, you could power this thing up to level 50. This cute little mustache, Water Ghost, unique typing, can actually go up to 2,500 with the right IVs. It's actually pretty dang strong because it's so tanky, and like I said, because you max out, it has really high stats in Open Ultra League. Now, the thing about Ultimate Ultra League is that it's really unique to use, and we're going to analyze a bunch of, like, basically, like, every moveset so that you could see how good Jellicent is for level 50. But I've had a few friends and a few viewers ask me, what do you think about Jellicent for level 50? Well, guess what? You know what? I'm just going to make a video and we're going to find out. The thing about Jellicent makes it interesting is because of its Water Ghost typing, it's very unique for Go Battle League. As you see here, you have a ton of resistances. You resist fighting, you also resist normal, bug, fire, ice, poison, steel, and water. So if I had to relate it, obviously counter users, body slimes from Snorlax are like gonna do almost are gonna do very little to they're gonna do really little to you. X scissors, fire spins from Charizard, incinerate users, ice beams, Lapras's ice shards, you're also resist as well. You also resist poison typing, so poison stings, sludge waves, etc. from Amok don't do much to you at all. If you see a Registeel, you're going to have a great time because it resists steel. And you also resist water, so basically waterfalls, hydro cannons, not going to do much against you at all. You have 4 weaknesses, however. Electric types aren't super popular in Open Ultra League because of the fact that, like, Giratina exists and Cresselia exists. However, they can still run around, so just be careful electric types. You're also weak to dark types, which probably Night Slashes from Obstagoon is probably going to be the most popular thing you see, or Alolan Muck. As far as ghost typing goes, of course, Giratina Altered is probably going to be the most if you see the Shadow Claw variation. And then you have grass types, which I don't know, you know, I don't actually see a lot of, I don't see a lot of grass. I mean, you could see Shiftry, but that's pretty much it. Grass isn't really too popular in Open Ultra League. Unless it's Venusaur, but that's, well, not even Venusaur. But yeah, because of Jellicent's many resistances and few weaknesses, it actually could be really good for Open Ultra League. Along with that, you have a really versatile moveset. You have Bubble, Hex, Shadow Ball, Bubble Beam, Ice Beam. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want to run Bubble. If you run Bubble, guess what? Giratina resists Bubble. You know what else resists Bubble? Empoleon. There's a lot of things that can resist Bubble in this meta. So, I don't recommend it. We're going to look at it, but I don't recommend it. We're going to be mainly looking at Hex. Hex is the move you want for Open Ultra League because there's a lot of things that don't resist Hex. Hex can do neutral damage to a lot of things, and you can do super effective damage to some things like Giratina Altered. Also, Hex generates more energy than Bubble, so you want Hex. As you see, your DPS is high. As you see, your as you see, like, depending on which moveset you run, like, your DPS kind of goes out, but generally you want Hex just because you generate more energy. Alright, so here's the rankings for Jellicent XL for Open Ultra. As you see, it's ranked 67. It's not ranked 69, so unfortunately it doesn't have the greatest number of all time, but you know what? It'll do. So Jellicent for Open Ultra isn't actually that good overall, at least from the rankings as it tells, but as you see here, it actually beats a lot of interesting things. You beat Cresselia, Melmetal, Togekiss, Lapras, and Excavalier. So you actually beat a lot of things in the meta. Now, you will lose against Gear Altered. If it has the Shadow Claw version, it's going to suck a lot because it's going to Shadow Sneak you to death. Swampert's also a problem just because Earthquake will do heavy damage against you. Articuno, just because of the icy winds. Yeah, you do resist them, but they can chunk, and of Hurricane. Obstagoon's Night Slashes will do heavy damage, and of course, Dragon Breath users and Gyarados Crunches are going to hurt a lot. As you see, it's best used in the closer, and second best used as the lead. But as you see, you beat a lot of really relevant meta things, and the key losses, yeah, they're around, but this is with the Shadow Ball Ice Beam, so let's see what other variations we can see that would be good. Well, we're going to look at all the variations here. In the league, Jellicent ranks at number 98. So as you see here, you beat Cresselia, Melmetal, Togekiss, Lapras, and Scavalier, which are really popular picks. The closer is its strongest position at position 29. You can actually beat Cresselia in the closer. You also beat Swampert, Melmetal, Scavalier, and Articuno. So you beat a lot of really relevant meta picks. Now we're talking about Venusaur. Venusaur will Vine Whip you to death. Gyarados' Crunch is also really chunk. Obstagoon is also going to hurt a lot. And Alolamuk's Dark Pulse are just going to suck. You also lose against Gear Altered in the closer without Energy Lead or Shields just because of the Shadow Claw. And the Shadow Sneaks are going to suck. Last position is a switch. You don't want to use Jellicent as a switch. You could probably switch it into a very strong matchup like Excavalier, but I don't recommend using Jellicent as a safe switch for Open Ultra League. Alright, here's the PvPoke.com matrix. As I always say, please consider donating to PvPoke.com. Now, I have the level 50 version here. As you see, level 50 and also level 51 for Jellicent. I'm analyzing every moveset possibility you can have. So we have Shadow Ball, Ice Beam, we have Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, and we also have Bubble Beam, Ice Beam. Always run Hex, don't run Bubble, because Bubble, like a lot of things like Empoleon and especially Giratina Altered, they're going to resist you. So that's why you don't run Bubble. I just put this in here kind of for science, just so you could see how it is. We got the 2 shield. I'm going to hit the 2 shield. We hit Battle. And as you see here in the 2 shield, you're going to lose against Bama, but you can win against the Shadow version. You can beat Articuno, Charizard, Clefable, Cresselia. Now, this is why you kind of want to run, like, you don't, like, as you see here, Shadow Ball, Ice Beam, as you, like, it doesn't cover as much as Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball would, or Bubble Beam, Ice Beam. So, Bubble Beam gives you a lot of play against a lot of things. So, it's really up to you. However, as you see in the 2 shield, you have a lot of strong, it's really strong with Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball. Because with Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, you can debuff, you can threaten, you can also build up to Ice Beam just to pretend you have it. As you see here, you can do a ton of things with Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball. With Ice Beam, okay, here the thing about Giratina O and Giratina Altered, you can beat them in the 2 shield, but you have to be careful because it's a bait dependent matchup. You have to bait both shields with Bubble Beam, and then you have to land a Shadow Ball. More or less, you just have to land a Shadow Ball. If you can land one Shadow Ball, you can go straight. I believe you can go straight Bubble Beam. So you have to land one Shadow Ball. So you must, and you have to not get Shadow Balled yourself, because if you get Shadow Balled, you pretty much get KO'd. So as you see here, well, yeah. So 0 shield, as you see here, Giratina Origins will get to its Shadow Ball, and you could do 119 damage, which is a lot. And then the subsequent Shadow Claws will kill you. So just be careful. You beat Lapras, you beat Machamp. You beat Lapras, you beat Machamp, you beat Melmetal, Mewtwo. You're gonna have to be careful about Dark types and Normal types just because they do resist Hex. For example, Snorlax and Alolamuk. But here's the thing. And Obstagoon. Here's the thing, and the reason why you don't use Bubble. As you see here, you still lose against Amok and Snorlax, even if you do have Bubble. So that's why Bubble's so bad. As you see here, Bubble, there's a lot of red with Bubble compared to if you were to use Hex. You beat Poliwrath, Registeel, Scizor, Swampert, Togekiss, and Toxicroak. Now you can only beat Togekiss if you can land the Ice Beam. Here's the thing is, Bubble Beam does give you play, but you can't go straight Bubble Beam. You have to land at least one shot. You have to land at least one Shadow Ball to take it out. If you could debuff it, great, but as you see here, you can't go straight Bubble Beam against the Togekiss. So you have to kind of finesse your way to victory, because Togekiss lives with like 2 HP. Now with Togekiss, if you hit it with the Ice Beam, obviously you're going to KO it. So I would build up to an Ice Beam and then fire Bubble Beam, just to finesse it. And of course you live against Toxicroak just because you do resist those counters. Alright, so we did the 2 shield, here's the 1 shield. As you see in the 1 shield, you will lose against Obama for both ones. With the 2 shield, you can beat Articuno, but you have to basically bait. So for Articuno, here's what happens. You're gonna hit it, you have to bait with Icy Wind. Well, you basically, if it shields a Shadow Ball, well, I think you can go straight Shadow Ball actually, because you have a lot of bulk. Yeah, you could probably go straight Shadow Ball. I would still use Bubble Beam, but you could go straight Shadow Ball against an Articuno. So just be careful So straight Shadow Ball will flip this matchup. So just go straight Shadow Ball against Articuno and you win the 1 shield. You beat Shadow Ball. You beat a lot of things in the 1 shield. Charizard, Clefable, Cresselia, Dragonite. I wouldn't worry too much about the Dragonite matchup just because, like, you won't see a lot of Dragonites. Drifblim and Pulling Scavalier. You won't see a lot of Ferrothorns either, so don't worry about that. You might see Gengar, so just be careful because Gengar is going to chunk away at you with those Shadow Punches and those Shadow Balls. Gallade, you beat Gallade. Giratina Altered. Okay, so here's the big problem. With Giratina Altered, you can... It looks like with Giratina Altered, you can barely squeeze out a match, because if it's the Shadow Claw variation, as you see here, you basically have to... Is there a breakpoint for level 51? So level 50, yeah, is there a breakpoint? Because if you only win with level... You win with level 51. So let's see. Shadow Ball, Shadow Claw, Shadow Sneak does 43 and 6. Shadow Sneak does 43 and 6. And then... Let's see. Oh, there is. So there's a... So... Well, this is probably IV dependent, because if they have a high attack Giratina, it might do something, but there is a unique... I wouldn't rely on this, by the way. So, for Giratina Altered with the Shadow Claw version, in the one shield, you can actually win if you have a level 51 Jellicent, because there's a break in a bulk point. But like I said, it's very bait dependent, because I think... So, if Giratina Altered has 10 attack, I don't know if we come out of this. So real quick, I just want to put this out here, because that's really interesting to know that, like... So let's assume this is like a 10, 15, 12. It's a really high IV Giratina. And then we hit go. Oh, okay, so you can. So, level 51 can actually... flip the gear. Okay, so this is the one matchup where it will matter. In the one shield, a level 51 Jellicent with Bubble Beam Shadow Ball can actually take out Giratina Altered, as long as you can bait the one shield with Bubble Beam. So, this is one matchup that's really interesting. Again, level 51 Bubble Beam Ice Beam or Bubble Beam Shadow Ball can be a level 51, I mean a Giratina Altered. You beat Giratina Origins with Bubble Beam Shadow Ball. I'm guessing it's the same thing where you have to bait and then you Shadow Ball. So as you see here, you have to bait and then you have to Shadow Ball. You can't go straight Shadow Ball, otherwise Giratina Altered will destroy you. Or Gira Origins. So that's a bait dependent matchup. So in the one, that's kind of bad, because Gira is like one of the targets you see. Like, it's good that you have a way out, but having a bait dependent matchup is never a comfortable thing. You beat Granbull, Lapras, Machamp, Bellmetal, Mewtwo. You still lose against all the dark types, including Snorlax, Poliwrath, Registeel, Scizor, and of course Venusaur because it's grass. You beat Togekiss with a lot of you beat Togekiss in the one shield. You also beat Toxicroak in the one shield as well. So the one shield's really dicey. It looks like you can flip some meta matchups. However, it's very bait dependent, so be careful. But you still cover a lot of the meta. Now in the zeros, which happens to be Jellicent's best position, you beat Articuno, Charizard, Clefable. You beat Articuno, you beat Charizard, you beat Clefable, Cresselia. Bubble Beam, Ice Beam starts looking like it's not able to take out a lot of things. Like Shadow Ball is like a kind of must-have, because look at how many matchups you drop in the zeros. So Shadow Ball is like very necessary. So Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, as you see Shadow Ball, Ice Beam, you're able to beat a majority of the meta in the zeros. You beat a lot of things in the zeros. Driplim and Polian, you beat Excavalier, Gallade. You could beat Gira Altered, but in the zeros you will lose against Gira Altered with Shadow Claw, and you'll lose against Gira O. So you could beat Dragon Breath Giratina Altered, but you will lose the Shadow Ball. You will lose with the Shadow Claw one. You beat Lapras, Machamp, Melmetal, Mewtwo. You're still going to lose against Muck, Obstagoot, and Snorlax. Poliwrath, Registeel, Scizor. You beat Swampert, Togekiss, and Toxicroak, but you're going to lose against Venusaur. Venusaur isn't that popular, so I'm not super worried about it, but you beat a lot of things in the meta. Now, some matchups... Now, it looks like in the zeros, it's not really bait dependent, but, like, just be careful. Because you do... Like I said, depending on what moveset you have, you will drop. But in the zeros, generally, as long as you have Shadow Ball, you can do a lot of damage and take out a lot of the meta in the zeros. Alright, so we did the zeros. What happens if you have shield advantage? So, wow! That's a lot of... Wow. So, if you have shield advantage, you destroy a majority of the meta... Except for Driplim in some scenarios, as you see here. I think it has to Shadow Ball you, so like Driplim, as long as you avoid the Shadow Ball, you're fine. But in the 1-0s, you beat a majority of the meta except Giratina. I think you can beat Giratina Origins as long as you have Shadow Ball. So you block the Ominous Wind, but you can tank a shot. Like, you block an Ominous Wind, so you just... Oh, so you Shadow Ball Ice Beam. So the Shadow Ball... So this is a funny thing. Bubble Beam Shadow Ball can take out Giratina Origins, the rest cannot. Unless it has chip damage. So you beat everything in the meta, except like I said, situational things with Giratina Origins. Lapras, you have Bubble Beam, Ice Beam because Lapras will wall you. You also lose against Melmetal because Melmetal will wall... Well, it doesn't wall you, it's just Ice Beam does, without stab, does like almost 0 damage. And Alolan Obstagoon and Snorlax, which will beat you, which I believe, unless you're in the 2-0s, you can't beat any of these three. So it's just a really dangerous matchup. So I would just be really careful about, like, basing any of them. So, yeah. So you beat all, oh man, you beat a lot of things, and you lose against Venusaur still. But like I said, don't worry about Venusaur so much because you won't see Venusaur a lot in Open Ultra. Alright, so we did the 1-0s, here's the 2-0s. As you see in the 2-0s, you beat practically everything except for Obstagoon and Snorlax. So here's what I mentioned, even in the 2-0s, you'll lose against Obstagoon. You can win with Bubble Beam, Ice Beam just because, and literally Bubble Beam... This is where Bubble, like, comes in. You can actually beat Snorlax with Bubble just because it doesn't resist Hex. That's pretty much why. So, but it's the only scenario you win with Bubble. Other than that, you'll beat a majority of the meta in the 2-0s. Other than Obstagoon and Snorlax in most scenarios, unless you have Bubble. Still don't use Bubble, because this... Literally having only one scenario where you beat both of those mons is not a good idea. And now here's the 2-1s. As you see in the 2-1s, if you have shield advantage, you're still very powerful. You're able to beat Abomasnow, you're able to beat Shadow Abomasnow. You lose against Driplim with Shadow Ball Ice Beam, but because, yeah, it's just, if it shields your Ice Beam, yes, but like, well, yeah. As you see here, if you can shield the Shadow Ball, you win. So as long as you shield the Shadow Ball, it's a bait-dependent matchup. Driplim's a bait-dependent matchup. So you don't shield the Icy Wind, but you shield the Shadow Ball. And as you see, you can win. So, in the 2-1s, Driplim is a bait-dependent matchup. You beat Gengar too, however, with Gengar, it's the same thing, it's a bait-dependent matchup. You have to bait with Bubble Beam, that's why you win with Bubble Beam and Ice Beam. You have to bait with Bubble Beam, and then you can hit it with Shadow Ball or Ice Beam. You beat both versions of Gira, I believe this, let's see, you beat both versions of Gira. The Shadow Claw one might give you a problem, though. Let's see what happens. With the Shadow Claw one, let's see... Jellicent wins, however, if you have to bait. So you have to bait with Bubble Beam. If you have to bait with Bubble Beam, you can't just go straight Shadow Ball. So if you try to go straight Shadow Ball, you will lose. Even in the 2-1s. Actually, you still win, so never mind. You can go straight Shadow Ball. So in the 2-1s, you could choose to go straight Shadow Ball and you'll still win, just because it's so bulky. So a Giratina Altered with Shadow Claw, in the 2-1s, you could just go straight Shadow Ball, which is pretty nice. The Gramble, Lapras, Machamp, Melmetal, Mewtwo, you're still gonna lose against, you'll lose most scenarios against Obstagoon and Alolan Muck and Snorlax. I would just try to keep away from all these three as much as possible, so just be careful. But other than that, you beat a majority of the meta except for Venusaur. Now, I'm not gonna include Venusaur in my analysis just because Venusaur isn't super popular. You could probably still see it, however, I wouldn't worry about it too much. So if I had to give Jellicent a rating, I would give it probably an 8 out of 10. It's actually really good in Open Ultra League. Of course, it's dependent on, like, moveset, and of course, it's really difficult to get a Jellicent XL, but you know what? If you have one, it's very, very powerful. As you see here, these are some strong ratings in the 2-1s. Like, if you just have shield advantage, this is how strong it is. And even then, in the 2 shield, it's very, very powerful. So you can close, it's a strong closer, but you can also switch it into, like, for example, if they switch an Empoleon into you, you could switch your Jellicent into it. And then you can have a lot of fun, as you see here, because these ratings are very strong. A 600, 700 rating are very, very strong, so it's not super bait dependent. So, Jellicent has a lot of play in Open Ultra. The only thing is, along with the fact that, like, it's difficult to get an XL, some matchups are bait dependent, and one of the matchups, like Giratina Altered, or Giratinas, it's very, like, you have to kind of finesse your way to victory. So, you have to, some matchups are bait dependent, you have to land Shell. You have to be very careful. It's a very difficult matchup because it's very dependent on, like, the scenario, because Giratina Altered with Shadow Claw will generate energy fast. The good thing is you have a lot of win cons, but it's still a really, like, rough matchup if you were to face a Giratina. Same thing with Swampert. Swampert is also a rough matchup. As you see here, if you do the Bubble Beam Shadow Ball moveset, you can beat Swampert in the 2s. But it's just somewhere really rough. As you see, the Shadow Ball Ice Beam variation has play, but you do lose a lot of matchups. For example, like with Swampert, as you see here, with the Swampert, you can only win it in the 0s or if you have shield advantage. So Swampert, another good thing about Jellicent, there's a variety of moves you can use. Don't use Bubble, but with Hex, you can use Bubble Beam, Shadow Ball, Ice Beam. It's up to you. You have a lot of flexibility. But as you see here, make sure you do your homework and make sure you play. But generally, Jellicent XL for Open Ultra is really, really powerful. And I definitely, if you are consider building one for Ultra League, an XL one for Ultra League, it's not a bad idea to run in the current meta. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I'll see you guys on the next video.